Welcome to another cinematic explainer here on Arena 360. Now, before we dive into the boardrooms of Indian football today, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, share this, subscribe, and definitely drop a comment below so we can keep these high-stakes sports business conversations flowing. Okay, so what we're looking at today is honestly nothing short of a civil war for the soul and the wallet of the Indian Super League. We are talking about a massive battle over governance, profound financial guarantees, and literally the ultimate direction of the sport in the country. So here is the playbook for how we're going to unpack this highly dramatic tug of war. We'll hit 1. The ISL rights battle, 2. The Genius sports bid, 3. The club's counterproposal, 4. The revenue split, and finally, 5. League governance and control. All right, part 1, the ISL rights battle, a fight for the future. To really understand this standoff ahead of that critical May 22nd meeting between the AIFF and the ISL clubs, you have to look at the legal bedrock. Legally speaking, the Supreme Court-prepared Constitution strictly mandates the AIFF as the ultimate owner and operator of the league. So the governing body has the absolute legal mandate to run the show. And that dynamic right there, that absolutely sets the stage for the intense negotiations we're about to dive into. Because, guys, the unprecedented stakes involved here center around an immense deal currently on the table. To put things into perspective, we're talking about a staggering 2,129 crore rupees. That is just insane money. It's exactly what sparked the current standoff and triggered a complete halt to standard proceedings. I mean, when you have billions of rupees suddenly entering the Indian football ecosystem, every single stakeholder wants to make absolutely sure their financial security is locked in. Moving right along to part 2. The Genius sports bid, and that massive 20-year deal. So where is all this money coming from? Well, the AIFF's tender process fetched a completely landscape-altering bid from London-based Genius Sports. We're looking at a monumental 20-year term, which breaks down as an initial 15 years plus a 5-year extension. This deal injects roughly 64 crore rupees. That's about $7 million just in the first year alone. And it comes with a steady 5% annual bump every single year after that. It's a massive, bold corporate play to lock down the commercial future of the league for 2 entire decades. Now, right out of the gate, from that initial year 1 payout of 64 crore, the AIFF is guaranteed 12.8 crore rupees. That's exactly 20% of that first-year sum. And you have to understand, this is a critical piece of the puzzle for the governing body. Having a guaranteed, ironclad check clearing every single year is the ultimate safety net for them. But as we're about to see, the clubs had a wildly different reaction to this proposed corporate marriage. Which brings us to part 3, the club's counterproposal, or as they're calling it, cost-efficient control. You know it's incredibly serious when almost every single team in the league puts aside their on-pitch rivalries. 13 of the 14 clubs, with East Bengal actually being the sole exception here, have united in this totally unprecedented show of force. They're leveraging their day-to-day operational experience, looking ahead to the 2025-26 season, and proposing a brand new, supposedly more cost-efficient model to completely halt the tender process. Their ultimate goal? Grab the steering wheel and stop the heavy financial bleeding they've been dealing with for years. The logic the clubs are using here is pretty fascinating. Their argument is basically this. How can a foreign company with literally no real roots in India run our league better than we can? They firmly believe that a foreign entity just cannot optimize revenue streams, like media rights, local sponsorships, and fan engagement, as effectively as the boots on the ground who actually understand the painful realities of the Indian market. So their counterplay is highly aggressive, and it boils down to a 3-step power play. Step 1, the clubs collectively take over the league operations themselves through a new entity. Step 2, they retain a dominant 90% economic interest. And step 3, they don't reject Genius Sports completely, but they drastically downgrade them. They want to reclassify Genius strictly as a data and tech partner, totally stripping away any of that overarching commercial control or league governance from the London firm. All right, on to part 4, the revenue split. Simply put, slicing the pie. Under the original Genius Sports framework, the math is super clean and predictable. 60% of the revenue goes straight to the clubs. 30% is taken by Genius Sports for their investment and operational work, and the remaining 10% goes to the AIF. It's a straightforward 3-way split based entirely on guaranteed money. But here is the massive catch with the club's counteroffer. It alters the financial risk completely. On one hand, the Genius model hands the AIF 20% of the year 1 money up front. Guaranteed cash, no questions asked. On the other hand, the clubs say, hey, we'll match that 10% entitlement so you technically don't lose anything, but they add a massive stipulation. They're saying this money only accrues after the league's operational costs and the club's own agreed shares are fully recovered. They are essentially asking the AIF to shoulder the operational risk right alongside them. And why is the AIF sweating over this conditional revenue? Because history casts a very long shadow. Under their previous 15-year partnerships, the AIF secured 50 crore rupees annually. That's not just extra spending money. That is the absolute lifeblood for running age group tournaments and grassroots football across the entire country. The AIF absolutely needs to maintain that level of funding to keep the sports foundation intact. They simply cannot afford to let their core revenue become conditional. Which takes us to our final section, Part 5, League Governance and Control. At the end of the day, who actually holds the veto? See, it's not just about the cash, it's about power. The club's blueprint demands a strict split in the power dynamic. The clubs want the right to appoint a central management structure where they retain veto power over everything commercial, structural, and operational. Meanwhile, the AIFF would be pushed into a purely traditional governing box, keeping their veto strictly for integrity, disciplinary, regulatory, and sporting matters. It's basically business on one side and the rulebook on the other. The clubs are drawing an absolute non-negotiable line in the sand here. They are insisting that external commercial entities like Genius Sports should have zero, literally zero, governance or ownership rights inside the central league structure. They want the boardroom closed off to everyone except the AIFF and the clubs themselves. They're just tired of third-party partners dictating how their teams are run. When you lay it all out side by side, it is literally a clash of two totally different universes. You have an ISF-developed structure partnered with a foreign commercial giant throwing around guaranteed payouts. And against that, you have a fiercely localized, club-operated ecosystem where that same foreign entity is pushed down to being a mere data vendor. Two fundamentally different philosophies for sports management. So as we wrap up this explainer on Arena 360, I have to pass the question over to you. Considering the immense, risk-free financial guarantees of the Genius bid versus the unified, aggressive push for local, cost-efficient control by the clubs, which of these two models do you think will ultimately define the next 20 years of the beautiful game in India? Does the money rule, or do the clubs finally take the wheel? I really want to hear your take, so let me know down in the comments. And hey, remember to like and subscribe for more elite football documentaries and deep dives just like this one. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we'll catch you in the next one.
So, did you find today's explainer useful?
Then definitely drop a like, share it out, and subscribe to join the family.
Tell us, what should we explore next? Stay well.